Hey, what's going on? This is Kid Shardy Gaming Nation, here to record this very important video and message to black men. The black community is done and destroyed, and a feminist programming that the black woman accepted willingly, that goes by the name of Serafina, she has been successful of aiding your enemies to usurp your throne in your house and preventing you from setting up a patriarchal dominance in your in your communities, setting up law, order, and leadership. And regardless of how hard black men have fought in America to establish that, whether it be from the Nation of Islam, the Marcus Garveyites, the Noble Drew Alis, the conscious community, civil rights movement, um, who else? Every one of those, the Black Panthers especially, a lot of your movements and organizations that was started by you, fought for by you, black men. Uh, you know, and I want to say those organizations that started in the '60s, right? Because that's when black women accepted feminism. This is where you saw the Alice Walkers and Maya Angelou. What do you call? I don't even know how to say her name. Maya Angelou's of the world. That's when they started in the 1960s, right? And I liken Serafina to like Agent Smith from the Matrix movie. And you can say Zion is the black community. The Matrix is Massa on the plantation. Zion is black men's effort to set up a patriarchy in his own household and his own community. Massa is the plantation or the big house where the white patriarchal structure is, right? And I'll even say that Serafina was there since slavery, because there's like the Angry Man and various other brothers in these spaces. And I like people like the Angry Man, Dr. Tia Son Johnson, Tommy Sotomayor. I liken them to like Morpheus, right? Or different variants of Morpheus. See what I'm saying? And they have come into these spaces toward Zion of Serafina. And as they pointed out, Serafina has been there since slavery. She has been in the big house. She was the house Negro, right? I think the Angry Man got that from David Carroll, right? She was the house Negro in the big house with Massa, and Massa was using Serafina to spy on what the niggas was doing, what black men were doing, what slave revolt they were doing, right? And the reason why black men could not see or figure out who Serafina was or is, or who she's become now, is because she is an infiltration program, right? Now, like I said, she's like Agent Smith from the Matrix, right? Now, with Agent Smith from the Matrix, Agent Smith, at one point, she was working on the behalf, well, Agent Smith, my bad, I said she. Agent Smith, he was working on the behalf of Massa. He was working on the behalf of the Matrix or the plantation, because Agent Smith, right? Anytime when Neo and Morpheus would jack into the Matrix from Zion to save people from the plantation, Massa would send out the slave catcher, Agent Smith. And Agent Smith's job was to stop people from leaving Zion, or stop people from leaving the Matrix to go to Zion. And his job was to find the the mainframe of Zion and destroy Zion, right? But Agent Smith was unique because Agent Smith, his goal was he wanted to be free from the Matrix. Even when he was an agent of the Matrix, he wanted to be free. And then when him and Neo fought each other, and Neo beat him in the first Matrix movie, in the second Matrix movie, Matrix Reloaded, he was free. He was different. He was a new person. Now in Matrix Reloaded, Agent Smith wanted to destroy both the Matrix and Zion, destroy it all, and rebuild something. I don't know what. I guess he wanted to. I forgot. He wanted to rebuild something. But Serafana now, she's different from Agent Smith. See, Serafana is working on the behalf of Master House to destroy Zion and to get benefits while being in Master's house, right? Now, mind you, feminism is something that white women came up with. Well, white women didn't really come up with it, and I'm gonna do a live show breaking down where feminism came up, where it came from, and who started it. But white women using feminism as a way to rebel against Master House, because really, truly, feminism is white women's way of arguing with her man over positions of power in Master's house, right? And black men and black women weren't really included into that fight. That's just a disagreement between the white women and Massa, the white man, right? And one can make the argument that even though we saw the white woman and the white man fighting over power in their house, one can say at the same time, because two things can be true at the same time, right? White women could have been fighting with white dudes over the power structure of who should have power in the house, but at the same time, they could have made a deal to say, okay, cool, we're going to use black women to recruit her into the feminist movement, but we're going to use her to destabilize black men. Because one of the arguments that one of those early white feminists made in the women's suffrage group was that we cannot allow black men to get the rights to vote and the rights to the resources before white women do. That was one of their arguments. So one can say that, you know, they just made a deal with black women, and black women accepted that deal. But her deal is okay. You'll get these illusionary Scooby snack tricks, or these tricks for kids. I'll say tricks for kids. Let's use tricks for kids, right? We'll trick you, but you have to destroy and usurp your black man's power in his house, right? And the program became Serafina. The best example I can think of a Serafina program is Queen Latifah and Claire Huxtable. Queen Latifah was the ultra pro black, conscious. You listen to how she rapped back because I'm 33 years old, right? So I was born in the 90s and I grew up in the 90s and the 2000s. I grew up in the environment of pro black and love yourself and conscious community. And Queen Latifah was one of those major players, one of those major forces of conscious black woman. She wore the crown on her head. She had the onks, the Afrocentric, right? Because that's how a lot of those black women, that's how Serafina comes at you. She comes at you with an Afrocentric, vibe to her. That's why I have this picture here showing you in the slide, right? Queen Latifah, she accepted the Serafina virus because look what she is now. So did Eve, and so is Claire Huxtable. Because Claire Huxtable, even though she wasn't a pro-black per se, but she embodied the black American, I want to say middle class black chick, even though she wasn't pro-black. But Claire Huxtable, she was still very feminine. She still loved her husband. She still loved her children. She was still supportive, but at the same time, she spit or spewed a lot of those feminist talking points on the Cosby Show, and she affected Bill Cosby with it. And Bill Cosby enforced those feminist ideas. So you can look at the Cosbys and a lot of those boomers with the earlier program of Serafina, because a lot of those boomers, like Cosby, was a happy wife, happy life type of individual. See what I'm saying? But that's another video for another time. Serafina now, and we're going to break it down. I'm sorry for the messed up slide, but I can't really help that. Serafina, her character is a cultural Trojan horse. Her archetype definition: Serafina is not just a woman. She's an infiltration program, a systematically crafted psychological agent embedded within black culture. Her purpose is not to build, nurture, or empower the black man, but to weaken him, divide him, and ultimately remove him from his rightful place all while pretending to uplift them. Serafina mirrors the characteristics of Agent Smith from The Matrix, only instead of replacing people with clones, she infects minds and culture with ideology disguised as love. She can be anywhere, she can be anyone, and like Smith, her influence spreads. See, amongst the pro black circles, right, they say that a nation raises no higher than its woman. Now, I despise that line because to say that would be to say that you don't respect the leadership of your men, right? Because at the end of the day, the woman dances to the tune of the man. You understand? Or she could choose, like Eve, to dance to the tune of somebody else, right? So because now why do they say? Let's go into why do they say that the woman a nation raises no higher than its woman? Well, because really and truly, traditionally, women were the ones who raised the children in the household. The men went out, conquered, and protected and provided and brought home the resources to that house, right? But at the same time, and oh, my fault, my bad. Let me break it and say it like this. Angry Man breaks it down in a way where he says that the woman is the psychological influence of that child, whereas the man, we're the more analytical, logical, practical influence of that child, right? She's the more psychological influence of that child. And he also says that it's like the connection between that child and that mother is like a black hole. And the reason why he says that is because that child had to spend 9 months in the womb with that mother, feeling, eating, and basically, feeling what that mother felt. And we always say, even in the conscious community, that what the mother feels, what she reads, and what she eats, even before the womb, the child reaches the womb, it's a it's affecting her, right? It's affecting her eggs in the womb, terraforming her womb. You know how they say they terraform on the earth, terraforming her womb, right? So what's in that environment is going to affect that woman and her eggs, and then she's going to affect that child with it, and then when she gives birth to that child, she's going to reinforce that with her psychology, right? And unfortunately, no. Where my pushback to Angry Man's talking point is the only way for a man to beat that or to override that is that he would have to have his influence would also have to be in that house to check that woman when she's out of line, to be in the process of grooming and molding that woman. See, this is where leadership comes in, right? If the woman is the nation, then the father is its guide and instructor. Because remember, the father's important influence is what? To mold the children and the woman with what? Correction, accountability, responsibility, logic, and analytics, analyzation. So that's our influence, right? So the only way for the man to override the influence of that woman, I don't want to say override it, but to counter that, right? To counterbalance that, he would have to be in the home, right? And that woman would have to respect that man. You see what I'm saying? And all of that is based upon free will and choice from the woman, right? But in black culture, what happened was black men didn't get an opportunity to set up a Zion, even though they tried like hell. Nation of Islam tried to do it. The Black Panthers tried to do it. The Civil Rights Movement tried to do it. Marcus Garvey tried to do it, right? Marcus Garvey tried to teach black people how to use capitalism to liberate themselves from the massa or from the plantation. Like black men tried like hell to set up Zion, but like black men at the same time was going to war, like in the Matrix movie, with the system with massa. So what happened with Serafana was during the 60s, during the 70s, during the 80s, she infiltrated the black community, right? And What she did was, and I can speak for the 80s and the 90s. I can't really say what happened to the boomers and why they chose to go happy wife, happy life. I don't know what the issue was with them, but I could say for the 80s and the 90s, especially during the 90s for me, that was the time where you saw the emergence of single mother households, right? And you can go back and you can watch videos on YouTube where you see black women saying, I don't want to be I don't want to live up under a black man. I don't want to get into a relationship with a brother, or I want to be free from that black man's patriarchy. Now these are black women that had children, right? And I would say these are Sarah Fauna's, I want to say, a upgraded program, the 80s version of that program, the 80s and 90s version of that program, right? And see what those Seraphonas did is that they raised a lot of the younger millennial or the older millennials, because I'm a 30s millennial. So you have 40-year-old millennials and you have 30-year-old millennials, right? So you had Seraphonas raising those generations of men and women, right? And then during the 80s and the 90s, black men were going to war with the system, right? You had you pick up a book called The War on Drugs by Elizabeth Hinton. You go, you have the war, you have drugs going into the black community. You have what else you had? You had NAFTA. You had Joe Biden's crime bill. So there was so many different elements taking black men up out of the black community. So those black men were not there, right? Especially with Gen X. So shout out to the Gen X men, right? Those black men didn't have the proper opportunity to sit there and properly check that black woman and aid in the molding of that woman and that child, right? Because again, the reason why they say no nation raises no higher than the woman is because she's raising the children. But the man has to mold that woman and teach that woman has to give her the proper programming. Somebody has to give that black woman or that woman the proper programming to raise those children off of. So black men didn't have that opportunity during the 80s and the 90s because what? Like I said again, black men were going to war with Master's house. And then at the same time, black women accepted the coronavirus, right? Regardless of the Black Panther movement and the various different organizations and programs that the black men started in the black community to guide and steer black women away from having to depend on massa. She still chose to be Serafana. And what those women did is that they usurped the black man's house, usurped his leadership by disregarding his instructions and raising his children, the millennials, the Gen Zs. Well, I want to say the millennials and the Gen Zs with the feminist programming, with that she got from Master's house. So let's go to the next slide. All right. The description paints a complex portrait of a figure who navigates identity and power dynamics in nuanced ways. By donning cultural symbols such as unks, head wraps, and natural hair, she aligns herself with a rich history of black empowerment and solidarity, while the Pan African colors emphasize unity and collective strength. Her pro black rhetoric and references to black men as kings suggest a commitment to uplifting her community. However, the text hints at an underlying tension where her action might inadvertently undermine traditional notions of masculinity. Her advocacy for Marxist, feminist, and progressive ideologies, cloaked in the language of care and healing, suggests a desire for social change and justice. Yet the narrative implies a paradox where her efforts might ultimately serve the interests of the dominant power structure, the white male elite. This portrayal invites contemplation on the complexities of identity, intention, and impact within social and political spheres. Now let's break this down, right? Now, this came from my brain, but I want to break this down. It says that there's an underlying text that hints at there's a text that hints at an underlying tension or actions might inadvertently undermine traditional notions of masculinity. Where's that text, right? It says, a rich history of black empowerment, solidarity, while the Pan African colors emphasize unity and collective strength, her pro black rhetoric and references to black men as kings suggest a commitment to uplifting her community, right? What's the underlying tension? If you're spewing Marxism, feminism, and progressive ideologies, mixed in together, right? That's underlying capitalism. Capitalism is synonymous to patriarchy and synonymous to masculinity. Why is that? Because capitalism is based off of competition. And when it comes to men and masculine energy, that's where we thrive. It's competition. And in America, when you're trying to set up Zion, basis off of the Marcus Garvey platform, or even with the Nation of Islam, right? Because they were capitalists too, and they were conservative, right? Black men being able to compete at a successful, dominant rate becomes a threat to uh, what you call the idea of Marxism, which Marxism is to overthrow capitalism, right? Black men being able to compete in capitalism and being successful goes against the idea of being a feminist, because feminism says they want to be equal, and really the intent is to be above or over or overthrow the patriarchal structure. It goes against progressive ideologies, because progressive ideologies, come to find out, means a woman has the option or the ability to abort your babies, not because of an emergency situation, not because of a situation where that woman was raped in her household, or some kind of birth complication, but on the premise of she wants to abort that baby when she's in a relationship with a brother that she's married to, or she's going to a hot girl summer and she's being irresponsible with her box. You see what I'm saying? So that progressive ideology, right? Now, when these women say their body, their choice, they're not taking into consideration that baby that's in her belly is the sperm that came from that man's body. So while they have a choice of what to do with their body with that baby, that progressive ideology takes away that choice away from that man, which goes against that patriarchal structure. So that's the underlying tension. Is that meanwhile black women are saying black king this and black king that, right? King being synonymous to a male power structure, a patriarchal structure for black men. She's going against that with Marxist, feminist, and progressive ideologies. Which all three of those is what? The point of all three of those is to rebel or to subvert or to usurp the power of man. See what I'm saying? Damn, I'm a smart motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? I just gotta speak how I just have to fix my speech and how I articulate myself, right? So let's go to the next slide. Purpose of this archetype definition: to give traditional minded black men the language tools. This is why I came up with this, right? To show you, look at how I made look how these pictures came out, right? These women, they had the gold hoop earrings, the garb, the African garb, the necklace around her neck, her boobs are exposed, because that's how a lot of them pro black chicks look. When I used to go to Harlem in the Black National Theater, when I used to do Goju karate out there, this is how they look. This is how they dress. Very provocative, with the exception of the Nation of Islam sisters and the Moorish American sisters. They dress pretty, they dress pretty covered and modest and conservative. But at the same time, you had a lot of them that were still bitten by that Seraphana virus. Because you listen to a lot of those Moorish Science Temple of American women and a lot of the Nation of Islam women, they speak a lot of feminist rhetoric, right? Because that's one of the issues I believe there was with the Nation of Islam, because they were very patriarchal. And one of their things was that the women were the support system, the men were in the lead. And a lot of black women did not agree with that. This is why you see a lot of the Nation of Islam brothers today kind of changing up how they operate. Now the women are equal to them. Now the women are in charge of the leadership of them. You see what I'm saying? And that's all to keep the women there, to pander to them. You see what I'm saying? I've never heard the Nation of Islam nor the Moorish High Temple of America brothers say that, okay, cool, black woman, this is your value, and we're going to take care of you. But at the same time, we're the charge, we're the boss. You're going to dance to our tune. Because at the end of the day, the nation, the woman may raise the children, but that nation still dances to the tune of that man or that king or that patriarch. You understand? That's my pushback with Angry Man when he says that, you know, the or more pushback with that notion that line that Malcolm X says where he says that no nation raises no higher than a woman. And I understand why that's being said because the woman is there even before birth, while the child is in the womb, and after the child is in the womb, affecting that child psychologically. Right? I understand that, but at the same time, that woman dances to a tune of hierarchy, which is supposed to be that man. You see what I'm saying? Or whatever is in charge of her programming at that time. See what I'm saying? Now, the purpose of this archetype definition to give traditional minded black men the language, tools, and discernment necessary to detect this character during dating, vetting, and community building. One way to change the culture is to change the language. By giving this character a name, Serafina, we will allow men to call out, identify, and protect themselves against emotional, spiritual, and cultural sabotage. This is not about hate. This is about a pattern recognition. Serafina is not defined by race, body type, or education level. She's defined by her mission to neutralize black male potential by weaponizing intimacy and ideology. Let me break down my own shit right there, right? When you talk about vetting and community building, you cannot build a community of like black men. You cannot build a community if your woman is constantly working for your enemy to usurp your community and usurp your leadership, especially if she has that kind of that psychological strength when it comes to raising children. You cannot do that. You cannot. You cannot. You cannot. And when you see this going on, you have to get away from it. You can't even engage in it. You engaging this in the dating and in vetting, this is going to destroy you. It will corrupt you. Look at these niggas in these spaces. Look how corrupt they are. Every time Angry Man comes out with a Angry Man or the Tommy Sotomayor or the Anton Daniels or the Coach Rick Adams, every time they come out with a chess move or a chess piece to put these women in check, look at the black men that these black women have infected. Look what they do. They take the black woman right out of check every time, right? One way to change the culture is to change the language. This is something I've heard Angry Man say, right? To get black men the culture, and even black women to understand this, you have to give them the language and you have to give the definition or attach that definition to that word to give it a vibration. Because vibration words are important. There's a reason why I call it Serafana or Serafina. Serpent. Sir. How the it sounds more feminine and serpent-like and snake-like, and it before it strikes it poisons you. When a snake bites you, it poisons you with its poison, and it slowly kills you. It's a slow death, and then when you die, it devours you. See what I'm saying? Because now, if you go to date and then vet this, you're already poisoned the moment you dated it. You went on a date with that person. And by the time you marry this person, you're dead. So, think about that, right? You have to protect yourself, black men, against this individual emotionally and spiritually because she will play with your emotions and she will use your emotions against you. Look at brothers that allow this thing to get the best of their emotions, cause them to get angry. And then when you get angry, she calls on the police to come lock your ass up. She plays with your spirituality, right? Uses God and you know the ancestors and crystals and shit. Palm reading. That's what a lot of those pro black chicks do. Kundalini energy and shit. Which there's a lot of merit to those stuff, right? There's a lot of merit to the Osharas, the Shangos, the African deities, the Anansi, the spiders. But right, a lot of these things are embedded into black men, into your spirituality, into your spiritual culture, and black women uses this against you because this is something that's in your identity, right? Cultural sabotage, right? She sabotages the language and she trains your own culture of people, your own black men, your own children, other women. Because in the Matrix movie, Agent Smith was that strong and powerful that he was even able to change the Oracle. He was even able to change the Seraph. What I forgot, Oracle. Oracle was in charge of watching over a child, and I think that child was supposed to be an important piece to the Matrix. I think he was even able to infect the architect. That's how powerful Agent Smith was. Agent Smith was able to change and infect everybody that was attached to that matrix. Agent Smith was even able to infect somebody that was from Zion that jacked into the matrix. He was even able to infect that person. And he was able to get jack back out the matrix, infected into that person, and he that person, I forgot whose name was, but he was able to fight. He blinded Neo. Him and Neo got into a fight, and he blinded Neo. You know what I'm saying? And the only way Neo was able to see him is because Neo himself was also attached to the Matrix. But that's another story, another breakdown, right? That's how powerful that the Seraphina virus is, and how powerful Agent Smith was, right? It should be about hate, because why would you not hate this entity? Because this entity hates you and seeks to destroy you. There's no saving this. There's no redeeming. There's no redeeming Seraphina or any black woman that has this virus, right? In order to defeat Agent Smith, what had to happen? Uh, Neo had to allow himself to get infected by Agent Smith, and then the Machine City had to put a virus destruction program to destroy it, right? Like Norton or some shit. That's what they had to do. There's no saving this, brothers. You cannot save it because the purpose of this woman is to destroy you. So you're not gonna save this chick. And no matter what is being told to the black man mind, he believes he can save this bitch. I don't know why, right? But one of the examples of how this person neutralized your black male potential is that Barack Obama came up with I think the Big Brother program, and you have black women that protested that program. So just imagine what else behind the scenes has this Seraphana virus or type of black chick has done to usurp the black man's power. Maybe that's the reason why a lot of black men don't get hired in a lot of corporate America or in a lot of these positions. Think about it. Core traits. Doesn't a lot of black women in Hollywood that claim to be pro-black look like this? Right? And in their undertone, they speak Marxism, feminism, and a lot of leftist ideology. Core traits: linguistic camouflage. She speaks the language of community fluently. Weaponized softness. She uses femininity as a disguise for control. Selective submission. Pretends to submit only to redirect. Woo! I'm a bad motherfucker. Cultural familiarity. Embeds herself in the community. Spaces, activism, or spiritual circles. That's actually how Marxism and communism infected a lot of people in the black culture, because how they come at you through community help, and at first they do a lot of good things, but you could do the same shit with capitalism because Marcus Garvey tried to teach you that. But that's how they come through activism. That's Black Lives Matter is a perfect example of that. Perfect example. Black Lives Matter, pretending that they're for black men, for black culture, and for the upliftment of black lives. But how do they come at it? Activism. You look at the black conscious community. Black Lives Matter infected the conscious community with LGBTism, with Marxism, with transism, and a lot of those black men over there accepted that programming. Well, once upon a time, black men of the conscious circle would have looked at feminism as white supremacy. They would have looked at El Gibbon stuff as feminist, as what you call white supremacy. And look how Black Lives Matter or black woman under the disguise of uh, activism has affected those conscious movements and turned them. It's the same shit that happened to the civil rights movement. Every black struggle, every black organization that had a black unity to it, thing to it, this is where the surf has been. So you gotta be careful. Manipulation. Oh yeah, pretends to submit. She pretends to submit, which means that she doesn't really like you. This is why when a lot of you black men get into relationships with this type of chick, right? She'll submit to you during the vetting process, during the dating process. She'll submit to you even she'll even submit to get the ring. But she'll then slowly turn your children against you. She'll then become a different individual. See what I'm saying? Then she'll call the matrix on you, master, to come get you, turn your children against you, because she never really liked you from the beginning. She pretended to submit to you. And a lot of black men, including myself in these spaces, would say, like, yo, why would this chick get into a relationship with a nigga that she don't like? Why would she pretend to do that? And then I figured it out. Her mission is to ultimately, like I said before in the slide previously, and in this slide, is to destroy is to prevent you black men from setting up a patriarchal structure in Zion, right? Uh, Emotional manipulation leverages past trauma and cultural guilt to extract control. Don't black women always leverage the trauma you went through with Jim Crow and the trauma you went through during the 80s and the 90s when you had the police whooping black men's ass, fucking y'all up with the dope and the cocaine game, right? Every time we try to sit down with black women and let them know, hey, yo, the 80s and the 90s was a crazy time for black men because while the crack cocaine era was going on, you had NAFTA and you had Joe Biden's crime bill. NAFTA took away a lot of jobs for black men, right? And the black men had no other option because that was what it was in the 90s, right? A lot of corporate America was not hiring black men for those college positions. And black men were barely getting any trade jobs because, like I said, NAFTA was taking a lot of those manufacturing and trade jobs and sending them overseas. So black men had no other option but to look to the drug game for that, which a lot of other men participated in the drug game. I would even say that a lot of New York City is built off of dope money that came from a lot of European, Italian, small hat, Irish, Russian. You go up to East New York, Brooklyn. You go up to Kings Highway, Coney Island. Take the F train with the Russians and the Albanians. A lot of them built their shit off of dope money and criminal money. But black women always likes to leverage, yo, black men ain't shit because this is what you did. They would not acknowledge the fact that black men had to do these things to survive at that time. They would not honor that. Instead, they go before Oprah and before social media today went before Oprah during the 90s and used this against black men, not acknowledging the fact that black men had to deal with had to go to a job interview and I've experienced it. I'm experiencing it now, right? Where you go to a job interview and you'll see a bunch of white what you call hiring managers. And if five white men go before me, they're not gonna pick my black ass. They'll hire those five white dudes. And don't let it be a black chick or a white chick that sit there. They don't want to acknowledge that. Instead, they'll use that fact. It's not that I'm a lazy nigga and I don't want to work. The system is in play not to hire me in those positions because, like I said, why would Massa hire a black man at his firm to learn from Massa, get resources from Massa to go bring it back to build up Zion? Why would he do that? But black women don't want to acknowledge that. Instead, they use that against you to say you're lazy and you don't want to compete. Goal for traditional men to identify serve fauna early before entanglement, to create a new culture. Entanglement, to create new funny entanglement, to create new cultural language and awareness, to restore the natural order of leadership, love, and legacy without infiltration. Remember, Sharafana isn't loud. She's not obvious. She whispers in the dark. A snake with perfume, and she always says she's here to help, but her help is a seduction, not a salvation. Don't these black women, when during the Black Mountains film, when it started to take weight, shout out to the Angry Man, right? Shout out to the Angry Man, right? Didn't you have panels, and you still have those panels going on to today? Shout out to Anton Daniels. Well, black women go on those panels, and they pretend as if they're for your community. They pretend as if they want to hear you out. And black men are so merciful that they'll actually do have the conversation. And what do those black women end up doing? Arguing and disrespecting those black men on those panels. Like DJ Hamp. Shout out to DJ Hamp. So you black men have to be careful. Very careful. There are a lot of Serafanas out there in these spaces. A lot of them. A lot of them dressed just like this. Provocative, breast out, but she's saying out and pro black. Look at this picture here. Quote from Serafana. Oh no, my love. I will never hurt you. I only want to help see what you have been too blind to notice. That power you think you have is really not yours. I'm just reminding you. That's a very what do you mean by that power you think you have is not really yours? Just reminding you. Whose power is it? Look at this person. African garb, breast out. Look at this shit. A lot of you niggas get fooled by it. See, before the Anger Man and before the Tommy Sotomayor, I seen these tricks, right? Because I'm a Taurus. My zodiac sign is a Taurus. And one of the abilities of a Taurus is that we're able to see and detect certain bullshit that goes around in the environment. But at the time when I was younger, in my teens, I couldn't put a language like the Angry Man language to it. I couldn't put language like a Tommy Sotomayor could put to it. And two, I was younger, so I wasn't mature enough to understand what I was seeing. But I saw them. Because again, one of the Taurus's personality types is the protector. And we tend to see shit. We tend to pick up the bullshit. We tend to see what the straight line cut through what nobody else is able to see because we're perceptive like that. And I see these people before. I see them in the pro black circles. But again, nobody else was able to see it. And when I would watch black men try to call it out, those black men would get shut down. So I said, oh shit. And at the time, I was a young dude, 16, 15, 18, 19, 20. And I was more involved in trying to figure out my masculinity and my place than trying to call out some shit that apparently everybody else was blind to or saw it and ignored it. Because how those black men in the conscious community would say, would trick you into ignoring it was, don't focus on the woman. That's just woman talking. And I'm gonna expose that type of man too, right? That's just how women talking. And a lot of black men in the conscious community wouldn't believe that a lot of black women would pick up on feminism, Marxism, because because black men would look at that as white supremacy. And with all this pro-black talk that she's talking, why would she pick up white supremacist ideas? But she did, and they did speak on it. But a lot of black men, distracted by the beauty, the Ankh, and the Queen Latifahs at the time, the way they was dressing, they just couldn't see it. Or they saw it and chose to ignore it. And when young cats like me saw it and tried to say something about it, they shut us down. And I think a lot of those dudes were like a Dr. Umar Johnson, Derek Jackson, because you had a lot of those niggas in the conscious community. And you have to expose those type of dudes too, right? But in conclusion, this is the Sarafana. This is the black woman that embodies that virus or that feminist programming. And I'm sorry to say, black men, she has been very successful in destroying Zion. Very successful. Even in the third Matrix movie, right? When you saw Jada Pinkett Smith's character, when they rebuilt Zion, what did it look like? Jada Pinkett was a whole LGBT gimmick person, and she had a whole wife. So what remained after Zion's patriarchy got destroyed was a gynocratic, woke, leftist, liberal BS in the Matrix. What was it? I forgot the name of that the fourth Matrix movie. So think about it. See, that last Matrix movie that came out, that's the Serafana's intention. That's the intention. Go look back at that last Matrix movie. Prior to that, you had the Matrix movie was very masculine. You had Morpheus. You had the generals that was fighting that was leading the army. You had the council that had men on it. The men spoke. Then after that got destroyed, look what it rebuilt itself into. You would have thought that Jada Pinkett's character from the Matrix Revolution would have got married to Morpheus. They would have had a kid. That Bell Child would have became in charge of and rebuilt Zion into a more masculine patriarchal thing. But it didn't happen. It became something else. But my name is Kiss Shorty Gamer Nation. Uh, Thank you guys for riding along with me in this video. Sorry for the outside noise. I hope I could be able to clean that up in the final edit of this video. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel.